Today on Better Book Clubs, a tour of my antique books. I have a bunch of random old and antique books lying around in my house. Most of them were given to me by older family members. And although some of them are out on display on my bookshelves, I don't really pay that much attention to them because a lot of them are too fragile to read. So I thought it would be fun today to take a tour of the antique books I have around my house. We'll start downstairs, work our way upstairs, and eventually I'll take you up in the attic where I have a couple of really cool collections. So this book is just mixed in on my bookshelf of regular fiction. It's a copy of Willa Cather's My Antonia, and I actually have a paperback copy of My Antonia, but this one is a first edition that a friend gave to me as a gift. And it's also got some old newspaper clippings, just like stuck in the front here. Here's the clip that says, Willa Cather, novelist, dies at home here. So this is a clipping of her obituary. I don't even know what newspaper this is from, but obviously whoever owned the book clipped this out and stuck it in the book. So that's pretty cool. This first edition was published by Houghton Mifflin Company in Boston and New York. And there's the title page, 1918. These books are really cool. These are old books from my husband's family. You can see the bindings are not in very good condition, but I'll show you what's in some of these little books. Here's one that belonged, I think, to his great-grandmother. And this is a copy of Milton's Paradise Lost. I mean, I guess you could read it. It's really falling apart, and in fact, it's missing its back cover, but that's super cool. You can see that somebody in this little book has added up the cost of some flowers and bulbs. This is just like a little book of religious poetry or reflections. This one is titled Methodist Hymns. I'm not positive of the date, but it looks like January 21st, 1890. This one is inscribed and dated December 25th, 1848. So this must have been a little Christmas present for someone. And it's titled Halloween, which is kind of intriguing. And there's a little illustration and then a little tissue layer. And the title page says Halloween, a romance with lays, meditative and devotional. And it was published in Hartford in 1847. This is a grammar book, so, chapters on syntax, grammar rules, etymology. This is back from 1817. This one, you can see, is probably in the worst condition of all of them, but that's because this is the oldest book, and I've actually been meaning to donate this to a historical society. I just haven't gotten around to it. It's all handwritten sermons. So this must have been a blank book. The handwritten title page says Sermons on Important Subjects, inscribed from original notes for the purpose of improvement by Jacob Catlin. Again, this is I don't know how many generations back, relative of my husband's, minister of the gospel in Newmansboro, AD 1799. This is like super old, which explains why it's falling apart. And these last two are pretty cool because, again, the bindings aren't horrible considering how old they are. It's cool because it's a geography book, and so published in September of 1805 in Boston. So it'd be pretty interesting, especially for somebody who's interested in geography, to go through and see what the understanding of geography was at this time. And the other book, similarly, is a travel book. Fisk's travel books were a popular series of books on travel, on world travel. This is really cool because it's Fisk's travels in Europe. In England, Ireland, Scotland, France, Italy, Switzerland, Germany, and the Netherlands, 1843. And again, we have like a really cool little illustration here. This says, beautiful island in Lake Maggiore. Honestly, I haven't read any of these. These are just really here because they look cool and they're pretty to look at. Some of them may have a little bit of value, but I know from a used bookseller that these books actually in this area of the country, some of them are not as unusual as you might think. So we just leave them stacked here as kind of a pretty display. There are two sets of books here that I want to show you, and the first one is a set of the works of Samuel Johnson, which is actually a pretty old set. You can see just by looking at the bindings here how old this is. They're not in great condition. They're very fragile. These belonged to my husband's family. They're really not readable. These were published in 1812. And the problem is, I mean, it's not really a problem, but just the fact is that it says it was published in 12 volumes and we have 11. So we don't have a full set. And you can see that some of the bindings on these copies over to the left are in pretty bad shape. So they're very fragile. But actually, my favorite books on this shelf are much younger than the Johnson, and that is this set of the works of Charles Dickens. And the reason I love these is because, as the story goes anyway, my grandfather bought these in serial form, so like one at a time, on the commuter train to New York City in the 1930s. So there was a salesman that would go up and down the aisles of the train selling these books, and he would come home, I don't know, once a month or something with another copy of one of these works of Charles Dickens. And one of the things that I love about them is that they have my grandfather's book plate in the front, so I can see that they belonged to him, which is pretty cool. These are dated 1936. And, you know, I don't even know how many of them actually got read. For sure, A Christmas Carol did, because this is the binding that's in the worst condition. And I myself read this exact copy of A Tale of Two Cities. There's also a bookmark in Oliver Twist and a bookmark in Edwin Drood. So it looks like those were at least started, if not finished. And I don't have the volumes quite set up in order here, but it looks like it looks like a 20-volume set. I just really love having this because it reminds me of my grandfather, and it's a great family story. Okay, I'll take you up in the attic in just a second, but first I want to share with you just a few quick tips from the Library of Congress on how to take care of your old books, some of which I'm following and some of which I'm not doing such a great job with right now. Store them in a cool, dry, clean, and stable place, not like an attic where the temperature fluctuates a lot, or a basement. My basement tends to be damp. When they're shelved, make sure that they're supported on either side. So it's okay to put them upright or flat, but not leaning. And it helps to shelve them with books of a similar size, which will help to support them better. Expose them to minimal sunlight. When you handle them, make sure your hands are clean and grip them around the spine to pull them out of the bookshelf, not from the top. When you open an old book, prop the covers up so that they're not forced to overextend. And finally, no paper clips, rubber bands, tape, or anything else that might damage your books. So we're going to check out the attic in just a minute, but first I want to show you one more book from my collection of old books. So aside from my grandfather's books, this is probably my favorite of my old books because this is the only one I actually purchased for myself. This is how it came in a plastic wrapper, and I have to find out really how this should be taken care of. So this is a memoir by Margaret Bourke White. She was a photographer during World War II. This is her memoir in particular of photographing during the war. In fact, in a particular place, a dangerous place called Purple Heart Valley. They called it Purple Heart Valley, a combat chronicle of the war in Italy. So you can see this has its original dust jacket, and it's not in the greatest condition, but I did read this book in this copy because I was just so interested in it, and it's hard to find. It's inscribed to someone. It says Christmas 1944. And I don't think this is inscribed by the author. I think it's inscribed by whoever gave it as a gift. You know, the first chapter, I think it is, talks about being up in a plane, looking down on this valley and photographing a battle in progress. It's kind of terrifying. And actually, Margaret Bourke White did suffer from PTSD, what we would now call PTSD, from her wartime coverage. But this book is, again, from 1944, published by Simon & Schuster in New York City. Okay, let's go up in the attic. So it's a little bit dark up here. I'll be right back. So what I have up here is 2 sets of books. It's actually a total of 5 big paper bags, like shopping bag size, of books that my dad passed on to me. My dad is an avid reader and book collector. You might, some people might say hoards books. So that's where I got it from. He passed on these 2 sets of books to me. One of them is a set of history books, and they have really beautiful bindings and covers. They're in really beautiful condition. And this one happens to be volume 18 in the set, called The Chronicles of America. This book is on the anti-slavery crusade, and it was published by Yale University Press. It's in excellent condition. It's copyright 1919. You can see it's got a beautiful title page here and this little tissue that protects the photograph. In this book, it happens to be a photo of William Lloyd Garrison. Someday I should probably have them appraised. I don't think I have the full set, and they're not all in such beautiful condition as these are. These would actually look really nice out on the shelf, but I just don't have that much shelf space downstairs that I can display everything I have. So for now, these are up in my attic, which again is like not the best place for them to be because of the temperature changing back and forth up here. Open the attic door and guess who comes in? The other set of books my dad gave me are a set of the works of James Fenimore Cooper. And again, like, these are not in the best condition, especially because some of them have been read. This is a copy of The Deer Slayer. It has my grandfather's name in it, but before my grandfather, it belonged to somebody else. You've got this really cool illustration in the front of the book once again. And just the quality of the paper really strikes me as I open these up. Like, it's really nice paper stock. They're not all in pristine condition. So, you know, if you're really a book collector, you're looking for really beautiful first editions in good condition, but I could probably have these appraised. The thing is, I just love how beautiful they are. And again, like, I have to find some shelf space to put these out because it's a pretty big set. As I said, between those history books and these James Fenimore Cooper books, it's like 5 shopping bags worth of books. So they would take up a lot of space on the shelf. So there's a tour of some of my cool old books that I love having on my shelf, and some of them not on my shelf, but they're just really wonderful to hold in your hands. And I love having a piece of history, even if they're books that I can't really read because I'm afraid of damaging them if I actually read these copies. So I hope you enjoyed seeing my old books, and I would love to hear what old books you have on your bookshelves. If you like what you see here, please subscribe, and I'll be back soon with another episode of Better Book Clubs.